This is the breaking story. This is the big story. For the unprecedented second time, a special counsel has been named to oversee criminal investigations and the possible indictment of people around Donald Trump or the former president himself. Attorney General Garland making the announcement today.
I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel. Such an appointment underscores the department's commitment to both independence and accountability. Appointing a special counsel at this time is the right thing to do. The extraordinary circumstances presented here demand it.
I can't really underscore how big a deal this is. The last time we saw this kind of paperwork pursuant to Donald Trump may feel like eons ago, but it was when the then acting attorney general for overseeing Trump cases, because the actual attorney general had recused, shocked all of Washington and put out a very similar set of documents which encapsulate basically what you just heard the attorney general say, that this is necessary. And that's when Bob Mueller got to work. And that changed in many ways the course of the Trump presidency, even if many people felt that for all the indictments, it never actually reached then President Trump himself. So this is a huge deal, and we have experts standing by to go into it. As always, we're going to begin with the facts. A little later in the show tonight, I'm going to give you my legal breakdown that I've been working on today with our team since the news broke. But we begin with exactly what this does. Let me tell you what's happening before I tell you what we think about it. The special counsel now will oversee the two open criminal cases that involve Donald Trump. First, the January 6th insurrection, and what legal culpability, if any, Donald Trump is deemed to have. As you and just about everyone in America knows, there have been a lot of hearings and committee investigations in Congress about that. There have been trials of seditionists, including one going into this week. But this will now be under the ambit and control of this new special counsel when you look at the January 6th probe and anything that touches Trump. And then second, that other case that got Donald Trump the indignity of having his property searched as a former president. The issue of whether he stole classified documents and whether he or anyone else should be indicted for that. Now, Garland says he made this new move today because both Trump and Biden are now intending to or already running for president. And he tapped a veteran prosecutor to be the new Mueller, to be special counsel.
Today, I signed an order appointing Jack Smith to serve as special counsel. The order authorizes him to continue the ongoing investigation into both of the matters. Mr. Smith is the right choice to complete these matters in an even-handed and urgent manner.
That is the brief. That's the assignment. Jack Smith is a career prosecutor. He has a high reputation for integrity. He ran the DOJ division called the Public Integrity Unit. He has experience with exactly the kind of special challenges that come in these cases. We hear so much about no one being above the law, and we'll discuss that later tonight. But politicians write laws, and politicians who are running for office to get back in power have all sorts of complexities that are different than just prosecuting a random person. So it is striking that the Attorney General has picked someone here with exactly that experience. And not only that, you want to talk about a tough assignment? Well, he was recently prosecuting alleged war criminals at The Hague. Now, what does this mean for Donald Trump? Well, you may recall from Mueller that everything led all the way up the line, but not including the president. And that actually had nothing to do with Bob Mueller or what you think of his probe. The policy under both parties' administrations, that is still policy now at DOJ, is that a DOJ prosecutor cannot indict a sitting president. So while there was much talk about what it would lead to, it was never going to lead to that unless somebody broke the DOJ rules that are promulgated by its nonpartisan Office of Legal Counsel. Now, Mueller cited that and explained that as part of his decisions of what he could and couldn't do. And I want to be clear before we bring in our experts. The last time there was a special counsel investigating Donald Trump, it was Bob Mueller, and Donald Trump was holding something that no one in America has other than, I guess, on the Monopoly board. He was holding a get-out-of-jail-free card. There was nothing that was going to come from DOJ that was going to try to send him to jail then. Donald Trump doesn't have that card anymore. He is a citizen, albeit a citizen running for office, which is part of why Garland says he had to make this decision and make this new office to provide independence of a special counsel probe. So, where do we go from here? Is this an escalation, a status quo, a punt? We're going to get into all of that over the course of this hour. I can tell you this is the story that no one predicted coming today, that has huge repercussions, that some in Trump world were very scared of, and now it's here. So let's bring in two former U.S. attorneys, exactly the type of people who've made these tough calls before, Joyce Vance and David Kelley, who, full disclosure, was my former boss when I practiced law. Welcome to both of you. Joyce, I just walked through the news of it, meaning what Garland said and what this does. In your view, if somebody's just wondering, how does this affect the open probes, if at all, what's your answer?
Yeah, you know, these are nuanced questions, and there will be a lot of criticism of this move that Merrick Garland has made because this investigation is underway. It's not a brand new investigation being stood up where you immediately see a conflict of interest and appoint a special counsel. What happened here, according to Merrick Garland's speech, was the convergence of two events, former President Trump's announcement of his new candidacy and Joe Biden's earlier statements where he suggested he would seek the presidency. That, Garland believes, creates a conflict of interest and that mandated his appointment of a special counsel in this case. The real concern is, does it slow the process down? Now you've got someone new getting into the mix. They have to stand up in office. That takes time in a bureaucracy. Garland seemed fully aware of those concerns today, and he explicitly talked about that, saying that he would provide resources, that he expected Jack Smith to jump straight into the process. And interestingly, as you point out, appointing Smith, who has recently been involved in the war crimes prosecutions in Kosovo, he went to that investigation after it had been in progress for some period of time, but before any indictments had been brought, seemed to jump into that one midstream and charge straight ahead. So one supposes Garland may have been favorably influenced by his experience in that regard.
Yeah, really interesting. You mentioned the timing. That jumped out, I think, to everyone. Timing is part of this. This is happening after the midterms because people are now talking about the next cycle. Even if, David, as a prudential matter, not all Americans want another 2-year-long presidential race discussion. But the potential subject of this probe is a declared candidate. As for timing, here's exactly what the Attorney General said today. You guys want to play number one?
I will ensure that the special counsel receives the resources to conduct this work quickly and completely. Given the work to date and Mr. Smith's prosecutorial experience, I am confident that this appointment will not slow the completion of these investigations.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber. Thanks for watching The Beat. I wanted to let you know I'm writing a foreword to the January 6th committee's full report, which is coming out soon from HarperCollins. You can go pre-order the book right now, and it'll come to you first when the report comes out in the fall or whenever the government releases it. Just search Melber Jan 6th on Amazon or your favorite independent book site and click pre-order. You'll be the first to get both the report and my new piece on the coup conspiracy. You can also go to melberbook.com and order it there.